and welcome back to Astro Self Care Sundays. I'm Kenya, and we're back again, and I hope this video isn't terribly fuzzy for you. I see the little signal that says it may be. I apologize. Hopefully, it'll clear up as we keep talking. But anyway, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. If you're new here, make sure you click subscribe. And you can just go ahead and like the video early because you're going to love it, even though I may look fuzzy right now because of. So I'm Kenya, and I am pushing very hard for every Sunday, bringing you a new video regarding astrology and self-care and how to use astrology as opposed to just hear about it or be able to say your placements. I have a whole Astro Self-Care Sunday playlist here on my channel. And so we've talked about every single sign. We're through the houses. Today is love, mental health, and travel. Oh my goodness. So these are some pretty important aspects of who we are. You may hear some noise behind me. I'm in my house. I got lots of people in my house, but I really wanted to be able to get this done. So I apologize if you hear, because I think I'm hearing them a lot. But anyway, today's a juicy day. This one, I think, the 7th, 8th, and 9th houses do so much. Well, all of the houses. They're the houses, if you're new to astrology or you're going to figure what house means, houses are simply just saying the parts of our life and how we are navigating the parts of our lives. And so each house represents a significant part of our experience in this journey, in this human experience, in this soul experience. And so I find that, and when you're really looking at astrology, the most personal houses are typically the first house, the 4th house, 7th house, 12th house. So 7th house, which is the love house, and that's what we're going to start with, is really the partnership house. It's the relationship house. That's the house for me. That's been my biggest life lesson. And so if you're wondering, oh my gosh, a couple things you can do. First thing I always recommend is that you do a reading. Okay. And kudos and yay and hooray for those of you who have been reaching out to me, booking your readings. I guidance readings. I need to get some testimonials up on my website so you can see what the experience is like. I do think I offer a bit of a more unique experience because of my counseling background. So I merge the coaching and the counseling and the guidance with the understanding of your birth chart. So I focus on natal chart readings. I don't do transit readings. I'll mention a transit if I really feel like it's going to be something you really need to be paying attention to. But in that first reading, it's really us better understanding what part is saying and how it's playing out and how you may want to start thinking about things a little bit more differently in regards to what's currently happening or how your family has existed or how work has existed or how relationships have existed. There's always a low frequency and a high frequency in astrology, or low meaning distorted or more challenging, more stagnant. High frequency is that abundant, fruitful, helpful energy. And a lot of times what I do in my readings is to help people better understand, okay, if you're feeling this way, you may be in more of your distorted or lower frequency. And so let's consider, how do we make that a more abundant one? And then we look at different parts of your chart that can help you with that. So definitely you want to get a reading, okay? And so like I said, I've been getting people booking readings as a result of YouTube, which is awesome. That's really what I'm here for, is to share this information and for you to feel like, maybe I need to go deep. Because everything I'm saying, even though I think it's incredibly valuable and informational, and I try very hard to make that happen, depending on your independent chart, this will play out different. Okay, so it's super important if it's resonating for you, not to just get on TikTok and YouTube and just watch a bunch of videos about astrology, because it will give you the basic, possibly, depending on who you're watching. but to really understand how it will play out in your life and how your journey is wired and what the lessons your soul came here for, you really want to get a reading. So I always include the description, ways to book with me, ways to do a free discovery call if you're not sure, all the things. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. Seventh house. So the seventh house is ruled by Libra and Venus. So that already tells you it's good if you follow astrology. Two of the two beneficent planets we're going to be talking about today. First, they rule, Venus rules seventh and Jupiter rules ninth, along with Neptune. So I'll get to ninth in a minute, but let's talk about the seventh house. And the seventh house represents our relationships because it's ruled by Libra, and Libra is air, and it's all about the relator, how we relate to people, how we relate to our money, how we relate to beauty, all of those really, and family, close family though, close friends is in the seventh house. And more than anything, those lifelong partners, marriages. Sometimes you hear, I put love because it's a requirement, I think, in our relationships. How that love shows up, how long, what way, whatever, that varies. But it's about the love. So when you're thinking about your seventh house, if you have pulled out your birth chart and you look at your seventh house, this is going to tell you, if you have planets in this house, it's going to tell you more about how you're going to experience these relationships, how you actuate and do these relationships. Okay. And so it's also going to talk a lot more. That house is also talking about our relationships, not just with our love, like romantic partners. And these are really our partners, not just our dating people, not just our people we like to just kind of hang with. These are our more committed relationships. And this can also show up in our business partnerships as well. So it's a love of commitment. Okay. So when you're looking at those planets and you're trying to figure out, oh Lord, because I think a lot of people, if they say, if you have an empty house there, if you don't have any planets, does that mean I'm not going to have any love? No, not at all. Not at all. Just remember, when you have an empty house, if as we've been going along and you look and you're like, I have nothing there. I like to tell people this just means this is not necessarily a part of your life where all the planets are having to get together to help you out. Okay. It doesn't mean it's going to be just easy. But it does mean that there's going to be some fairly reasonable kind of ebbs and flows and more balanced type of energy. And more than anything, it's about that's not necessarily the area of life where your biggest lessons are happening. Now, this sometimes tricks people up who have empty seventh houses and they really want marriage and maybe they're single. It's like, see, well, what? As it's, it's not flowing. Well, there is something else in your chart that if you so desire, and all of us desire some level of closeness, right? Whether it be friends, family, love, business partnership, whatever. Just other parts of your chart where the lessons are going to be learned more and where you will be doing more of your development and how that will then impact that seventh house will depend on whatever is going on in the other houses that do have more activity. Okay. The other thing is just remember, you can always just, because the seventh house is ruled by Libra and Venus, find where Venus is in your chart, find where Libra is in your chart, because that's going to tell a lot about also how you do relationship. Okay. But let's think about those who do have planets like me. Seventh house is one of my busier houses. The fourth house is my busiest. Seventh house is my second busiest, which is very interesting because both of those houses are very focused on family relationship. They're very focused on connection. And so a lot of my lessons, a lot of what I'm doing in this lifetime, a lot of how I'm experiencing this lifetime is growth and development, loss, rebirth, all kinds of things in those parts. Okay. But again, your fourth house is really attempting to support you navigating interpersonal relationships. Okay. And it represents the dynamics and the factors that impact everything involving close relationship with others. So if you have some challenges in relationships, you really want to be paying attention to that seventh house. In terms of self care, you really want to be paying attention to the seventh house and how you may be able to grow and develop your relationships. Because obviously, the relationship with self is first, that's primary. It doesn't matter what's going on in there. And this is why I say, you have to look at the other houses. You want to be looking at what's going on in that first house, what's going on in that fourth house, because they have so much to do with you and then how you may also then experience that seventh house. So, for example, my North Node is in the seventh house. I also have my moon in the seventh house, and I have Jupiter in the seventh house. All of us, you may see, all of you will see DC, and that's just the opposite of the ascending. It's just a point. It's not a celestial body. It's a point. But yeah, I have some big dogs there, which means a lot of my lessons. Seventh house, absolutely. And it's interesting because people are always saying, oh, Jupiter is where you're fortunate or whatever. Oh, you must be fortunate in relationships. And I do think I am. And I've also gone through a divorce. So it depends on how you are choosing your life, how you're choosing your care. Because remember, there is the high frequency and then there is the low frequency. And if you are not choosing to get in alignment and work on yourself and do discipline and do these different things, you could sit at the lower frequency. And I know for myself, yeah, Jupiter was sitting there. And so I feel like I've been able to connect interpersonally fairly well. Like I have a lot of Libra, like my signature sign. And I hope I'm planning on doing a webinar or a workshop on how you find your signature sign, meaning what more energetically overall is the sign that kind of resonates. So just because my sun is Scorpio, that's not my signature sign. What I have a lot of dominance in my chart of is Libra. For sure. And so Libra rules seventh house. Oh, you got it. See, you see. So for me, there's a lot that I have had to learn, even though it's an area that I feel fairly comfortable with. But there's been a lot of growth, a lot of loss. But the loss was making room for the rebirth. And that's what's so magical about when you really learn astrology. You start not seeing loss as bad. You start seeing certain things not as bad. You recognize that, in fact, if you start really understanding your chart, then you know if I move more toward the higher frequency, really the universe is simply attempting to give us more and wonder and beautiful lessons. So seventh house, pay attention to those planets, see what's going on in there. If your sun is there, if is your moon, obviously you have to think about what that planet does and then how it's playing out in your relationships. I told you my moon was there too. So relationships, because our moon is about our emotions and our instincts and our needs. All right. Yeah. Relationships are going to really matter to me. All right. Next house, eighth house. Whoa. You see my face? Eighth house to me is a more challenging house to explain to people. Two, I feel it's the most intense house when you really start understanding what it's about, but intense in a very kind of, to me, quiet way. It's not obvious. And why is that? It is ruled by Scorpio. Ruled by Scorpio and Pluto and Mars. So again, if you just think about what those planets are, and that sign is, it's going to tell you a lot about that eighth house. But the eighth house is interesting because it's not as simple as that. And I actually have some notes on it. I want to read the notes to you. I got these notes. These were not that I written. Let me make sure I cite who I get this from. This is from Devontae Clark, who is an amazing astrologer and my mentor, and is also here on YouTube. Devontae Clark, Astro Legacy. But this is how he has put it. And I love the way he put it this way because I think it's the better way for me to be able to explain it. So the eighth house, it represents a deepening of your personal relationships. So I haven't talked so much about this yet, but the houses, each house is deepening your experience in this arc of your human experience. So you know how the first house started out with the I am. It's a very much more ego space, and ego not egotistical, but ego literally like human stuff. But as we're moving along, the human is having a journey all the way until it gets to the spirit. Okay. So by the time we get to the eighth house, we're starting to really deepen things. Okay. So it's really looking at a more deepening experience with relationships. And so it has a lot to do with intimacy and sex and emotional bonds and resources and mental health. And so that's why I put mental health, because as we are deepening our relationships, we have to be thinking about our mindset and how are we, when we're developing intimacy, it is about, yes, heart space, but it's also about the health of our mental state. Okay. And so I think this is what makes this house kind of challenging, because it involves a lot, and it involves those parts of ourselves that are at a very deep, and think about Pluto and, and its subconscious, and a very, often subconscious level. So a lot of times we're not really aware. You might have, if you have a lot of planets there, what's tricky about this house is you can have a lot of planets and not fully be aware what that even means. Okay. And that's again, because those energies are working more collectively in the subconscious. And the subconscious is always carrying a lot of history and wounds and things that we may suppress, things that we're slightly aware of when it's brought to our attention, but in our day-to-day, maybe not so much. Okay. And I think that's what makes this house challenging. So when we think of intimacy and sex, it's representing more about your attitude and approach towards situations involving intimacy and sex. Okay. As well as the experiences. Okay. And so this can include emotional bonding and any kind of sexual performance, but it's again on a really deep level. It's also about your shared resources, how your attitude and your approach towards situations where you have to be cooperative, share, collaborate. This is also in terms of financial. You'll see a lot of things regarding inheritance, managing other people's resources, your inheritance, wills, property. So that's again, shared resources. But when I start getting into people's wills, when I start getting into people's resources, when I start getting into collaboration, yeah, I can't do that without we're going to get into the mental, right? You have to. You don't just collaborate lightly if it's going to be meaningful. You have to typically get into more serious energies, and energies that are not always so obvious. So it's a deep house. There's one more aspect of it, that the power and control of it all. So it also represents your attitude and your approach toward power, both your own and that of others. Okay. And issues involving self-control and the control of others. So depending on, I didn't mention this, but for the seventh house, I have Capricorn there. So how I do relationships is in that Capricorn style. Okay. So when you look at your seventh house, whatever sign is assigned, that's your style in which you go about doing the relationships. So for me, then the eighth house is Aquarius. And so my style in doing all those things I just mentioned is with more of an Aquarian energy. Thank God I don't have no planets there. I got enough in other places. But if you do have a lot of planets there, I feel like when I do readings with people who have a lot of placements in the eighth house, this is a soul who has a lot of ancestral energy that it's wanting to address, karma. It can lie within the maternal a bit more ancestrally. And so I find that when you have a lot of placements in this is a deeper kind of work that you're going to have to do, because again, I always keep this phone on. I always forget. Again, it's ruled by Scorpio and Pluto. And remember, Scorpio and Pluto are the power. They're the most intense signs, but they are fixed water. Emotion, fixed. So to get to that emotion, not like Pisces and Cancer, you have to go deeper. And so I find people who have a lot of placements in the eighth house, a lot of planets, especially you got to pay attention to what planets you got there. Okay. If you got some big dogs there, they're all big dogs, but particularly the dominant, if you have your sun, your moon, if you've got Chiron there, if you've already got Pluto there, those are planets that work intensely. Saturn, they work intensely, and they want you to go beyond maybe the scene, what you see. And so if you have a lot of placements there, you really need to sit down with life and be thinking and get honest and get real. Okay. And if you want some shifts, if you're finding that you're not feeling good about life, or you're feeling challenged, or you're feeling like you don't have enough help, or you're feeling like you're not being able to really create intimate relationships, deep intimate relationships, we have to look at the eighth house and begin to better understand and unpack what the soul is wanting you to experience and to gain, so that you can experience those things. All those planets are not there just to make your life hard. Those planets are there to help you so that you will be able to have these enriching and quality and lesson learned experiences. So it's a deep house. It's a deep house. Okay, we could spend probably a lot more time, but we're going to keep moving on. Let's go to the ninth house, which kind of frees us up. Let's get out of that Scorpio and Pluto and Mars deep, even though I love being there. Ninth house ruled by Sag, Jupiter, and Neptune. I like the ninth house too. Okay. So the ninth house is our travel. I'm sorry if the video is doing wacky things, guys. Higher education, philosophy, astrology, religion. Okay. So I have Pisces there. Pisces is happy. Pisces is happy there. Okay. Pisces is happy there. And so because Pisces is co-ruled, by that Neptune. So, it's ruled by, Neptune. So it's, and Neptune and Jupiter. So it's very happy here. And I'm happy there. That's where my MC is, my midheaven, which is what I will be known for. Hence me being here on doing astrology with y'all. And then being in education, teaching, being a professor. Yep. And then doing retreats where I travel. I love this house. So let me tell you a little bit more about that house so you can understand what that house is really trying to help you out with. So again, the ninth house it's really basically about, it represents where we go beyond that we were taught in our childhood and immediate environments, so that we can gain an expanded understanding of the world and our place in it. What I love so much about the ninth house is it's trying to bring us beyond the conditions that we may feel burdened to, or those conditions by which we may have our environments that we maybe didn't have full agency, or where we felt thwarted. The ninth house is attempting to say, hey, let's go learn about some other cultures. Let's go learn about some other ways to be. Let's go explore and figure out how you connect in this magical space called Earth and the world. Let's have global experiences. Let's dream and think a little bit outside the box. Let's do that Sagittarian energy, because Sagittarius rules it. Let's get into that positive, more buoyant spaces. Okay. So now think about Sagittarian, and it's distorted. Got to be careful. Got to be careful, because it can tend to ignore the red flags a little bit. But really what the ninth house is attempting to afford you is a little bit of that. Let me get away from all the, okay, so that I can expand my understanding, not just expand the experiences themselves, but the understanding of the experiences. So you want to look at what planets are in there to help you do that. Okay. If you don't have any planets, again, no worries. let's go and look at where Sag is and, in our chart. Let's look at Jupiter. Let's look at Neptune. Let's see where these other places are. But that also just means that might be an area of your life that you're just not getting the bigger lessons. Doesn't mean you're not getting the bigger experiences. You absolutely are. We're all given opportunities for that. But some are needing more energy in that space in order to make sure that happens for them. Okay. All right. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say about the ninth house. I felt like there was something else I wanted to say about the ninth house. Let me, oh yeah. So it also impacts, I have some notes here, impacts your attitude and approach and experiences in regards to your expectations and standards and morals that have been established by your conditioning. Okay. So you do have to, I find that, when people have Chiron here or have Saturn here or Pluto here, those are planets that are attempting to get us to get in alignment, healing, transformation in regards to those things. So there may have been some type of conditioning around how to believe or how to think of the world, right? But really the soul wants you to decide how to believe and think of the world, not just what you've been conditioned. But what can happen is if you're not aware that the conditioning is sitting there, you'll think that whatever conditioned state you're in is the world, is the religion, is it. When in fact, is it really though? Or were you just raised to think it was? Maybe parts of it, yeah. But maybe parts of it, no. Okay. So that is 7th, 8th, through 9th. Oh, and I said travel for the 9th because travel, again, in order to experience things bigger than us, often we're going to need to literally travel or at least travel in our minds. Allow ourselves to think more broadly. I like to work with the 9th house a lot of times in helping people, especially when they are feeling very constricted or very reserved or not like they can, or very narrowed or blocked. Let's look at the 9th house and see how can we free up a broader understanding of things, a broader sense of how self relates to education and culture and belief systems and so forth. Okay. All right. That's our 7th through the 9th, our love, mental health, and travel. We'll be back for our last discussion through the houses where we'll do 10th, 11th, and 12th. I ain't going to tell you what that is till you got to come back. So make sure now you can officially like it if you haven't already, but you already have, right? You might hit it again and be like, oh, I already liked it. Oh, did you not? Push like. Make sure you're a subscriber as well. Guys, we're so close. We're so close. So close to the 1,000. And beyond any of that, again, if you are wanting more guidance that's more specific to you, if you're hearing this and you get it, what I'm saying, but you don't really get it when you're looking at your chart, which is 3,000,000% totally normal, reach out. At a minimum, do a free discovery call. If that's like, you just know you want to, I want to book the session, which many people, that's what people are doing, is just book the session, then just book the session. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to findingyourvoiceafter40.com/about, or just go to that website and then you go to the menu and you can, so that if you want to just feel more comfortable about who I am and so that you know that I'm legit and I'm not just on YouTube talking. That's important. It's important when you're dealing with your soul and your life. It's important. You want to just be clear. Okay. And if you're someone who right now, my Finding Your Voice, I really, it's a boutique business. It's something I do to really do my astrology, but I also do retreats. And so I'm excited because we're going to be announcing our new location and where we're going. If you've done a retreat with me before, with Finding Your Voice before, you're going to get early access and early ability to get your spot, but we'll be opening it up to the public later this summer. So I do lots of stuff. And if you want that 9th house to get going, I'm your girl, because that's a lot of what my business is geared toward, to expose you to those things that expand you, that get you to a deeper and a more expansive understanding of things beyond the conditions that exist. All right. All right. You guys be amazing. Have a wonderful Astral Self Care Sunday, and I'll see you next week.